Hello again, everybody. Let's start. Thank you very much for coming. I know some people spend almost 2 days somewhere close to welcome, everyone. So the idea here is that we are going to talk until about 10:45. So we have 1 hour 15 minutes for the introduction. And the plan is to have an introduction because some of you are new. You don't know each other very well. So very briefly introduce yourself, please, where you work, where you're coming from, and a little bit of your background, the working background of me, and very briefly what you expect to get at the end of the Mexico module. So what's your main expectation from this training module? Good? Clear? So, start as you wish. Maybe the host?
I'm the host. So I'm an economist. I want to work in transportation topics. I don't work currently on transportation topics. And what I expect from this, I want to learn more about transport issues. That's what I want to know. And Mexico is a great example of what we've done wrong. So there are many things we can improve. And it would be great if everybody can share their thoughts about that big issue.
Okay, good. And you're Brenda, right?
I'm Brenda, yes.
Cool. And this is your second or third model? Great. So, yes, maybe.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Matthias. I am originally from Germany, but currently live in Washington, D.C., where I work for the Organization of American States on anti-corruption and transparency issues in Latin America, mainly. This is my second module. The first one was the US module in September in New York and Detroit. What do I expect to achieve at the end of this module? I feel privileged in a way because I lived in Mexico many, many years ago. I studied here and have come back many times, but have always seen Mexico from a very different perspective. So when I studied here, I studied literature and law and other things. So this is a very new perspective on many issues that I think are very crucial for Mexico. So I think that's a very nice opportunity for me to look at it from this angle.
Okay, hello, my name is Fabiola Espinosa. This is my first module. Actually, I work in public transportation, more the technical part, so the designing of metro lines. So I expect from the course to have a new perspective of the transportation, more of organization of the city than technical way.
Great.
Good morning. My name is Astrid Haas, double A, not double S.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's a common mistake. I am half Austrian and half Ugandan, but live and work in Uganda, which, as you pointed out, is not very well connected to Mexico City. But you know, what I work for a think tank run by the London School of Economics and University of Oxford. I'm an urban economist. I'm based in the Kampala Capital City Authority, working on urban economic policy, particularly surrounding municipal finance and urban mobility, or lack thereof. I'm impressed that Brenda says you've got a lot of things wrong because we're very far behind where we stand right now in Kampala. We're just currently even evaluating how to institute a public transportation system at all. And I think for me, African cities are generally looking towards Latin and Central America a lot now because they urbanized much more recently than Europe and the States. So particularly in terms of public transportation, we've been looking towards places like Mexico and in particular the BRT. So I'm very intrigued to learn more about that. And potentially when you say things have not been done quite right, it looks really perfect to me right now. So I look forward to learning about how we could potentially do it better or do it better.
Hi, my name is Lélio Poleas. I'm from Brazil. I work at the City Hall of Rio. I'm a geographer, and there I work at the Urban Planning Department. And here, I would like to learn more about metropolitan governance, transportation. I mean metropolitan governance because my thesis here talks about that. So I think that 20 million metropolitan region could teach a lot for Rio that has almost 11.
My name is Miguel Vergara. I'm from Colombia. This is my second module. I work at the housing ministry in Colombia, in Bogota. I'm expecting to learn more about how housing and transportation could develop together, like with these BRT routes that we have also in Colombia, to see what Mexico is doing better than Colombia, that right now many BRT systems are not working in Colombia. So it's going to be nice to see how things work here.
Great, I'm Yanis, I'm from Athens, Greece.
You're the
This
grandfather
is-
here?
Yeah, this is like what, my fourth module. Yeah. I should finish by September, you know?
You should.
And I work for the city of Athens. I work with on urban planning issues and as an advisor over there. And from Mexico, what I expect to learn, I don't know how to run such a big city and if it makes sense. And I'm very surprised why they made the city here. It just doesn't make sense to me why the city was built here. And you know, I just want to figure out why here.
Good. Maybe Omar, you can also introduce yourself because people will be wondering.
Hi everybody, my name is Omar. I work at Tec de Monterrey in Guadalajara campus. I'm your logistic contact. If you have any problem with the classroom, it was I'm the guilty.
He's actually the one who organizes the whole thing. We have a nice place and everything is set up. It's all thanks to him.
And I'm the director, the academic and administrative director of the graduate school in Guadalajara campus.
He's also working with China, so if you have questions about China, you can also
Bhutan, Tashkent, Xinhua.
Good. And you know me, some of you, I have the privilege to meet you the first time, but my name is Mohammed. I have been working with Matthias Finger in EPFL from 2012. We ran this program together with Matthias in 2014 in Guadalajara campus, Mexico City exactly. And then many things evolved, and this is the official start of the third edition of the program. And as I was talking to Yanis, now we have almost 25 people enrolled in the program, so the group is going to be bigger, especially in Kuala Lumpur. I'm expecting to see more people coming. This one is a little bit less, but it should be fine. We would have better discussions probably. I did my PhD on the intersection between education and governance of infrastructures. How we can educate practitioners to learn about different topics related to governance of infrastructures. And my PhD was developed around IGLUS, so the people who joined the group as the first edition were really the topic of the PhD as well. They are not here, so I can talk about it now openly, but they know. But I have been working on this, and I'm really happy to start the third edition with you again. And now let's get to the module. In week one, we are going to stay in Mexico City, and as you know, next week we fly to Monterrey and have the classes there. Week one, we will talk firstly about the challenges in Mexico City. This is what we are going to do the first day. Different people will come and explain the key challenges that Mexico City have and how the city is trying to address them. We talk about urban sustainability. Marta Delgado will come. She was the Vice Minister of Environmental Sustainability in Mexico City for quite some time, and she's quite knowledgeable about the topic. Tomorrow she will come, and as I will explain to you, she will come a little bit late. So tomorrow we start at 10, not 9. Just keep it in mind. Then we have topics of metropolitan governance. That would be interesting for many of you, I think, and we would have examples about how things could not be managed in Mexico because of the gated communities and all the different, contingencies they have here. And we talk about mobility. 2 days are dedicated to mobility. Thursday and Friday, we have people coming from ITDP and World Resource Institute embark. formally, we will visit the EcoBC, which is a bike sharing facility in Mexico City. Then we talk about the BRT, about the mapping processes here. The program is fully loaded for transportation on Thursday and Friday. And then on Saturday, we do the green infrastructure. Andrea Finger would come. We will have a visit to Xochimilco with a guide who is coming from Monterrey, so that should be interesting as well. And then we fly to Monterrey second week. We would have the same structure more or less, Monterrey challenges and how we are trying to address, specifically focusing on energy and water infrastructures. Mexico City more really on mobility, there on energy and water. And we will see a very interesting initiative which they have in Monterrey named Distrito Tech, which is an initiative by the university to revitalize the city, and that goes to the economic development and all these dimensions as well. So that should be interesting. Then there are some issues that we covered during the 2 weeks, not only in one of the two. Your master projects, which some of you are familiar with, some of you are just beginning, but you will know more about that. Matthias will come, and then on Wednesday morning we will have a session on master projects, working with you to define exactly the questions for those of you who didn't start yet, and for those who are more advanced, the data collection and the analysis parts. And then what would be new in the third edition, and I hope it will work with your support, is what we call action research workshops. Action research is a methodology for intervention in social settings, where some, consultant kind of people try to help a community or a group to come up with ideas and solutions to address their problems. And we want to practice this methodology in the class. And the way we do that is one of your colleagues, this time Brenda accepted to present a case, presents a case about the challenges in the city, and then during the course of 2 weeks, you will design action plans, which I will explain tomorrow what that means, to address that problem. And then at the end of the module, we would have another workshop discussing your action plans and working on the solutions. Some practical considerations. The field visits, Omar? The field visits, we are going to leave from here
in Guadalajara here we are going to leave from this campus to the visits and then come back here. Here you can go wherever you want. In Monterrey, the original idea was we stay in the governance and transformation public school. Some days we are going to go to the campus. The easy way is we can show in the hotel. It's Fiesta Inn near to Valles. We are going to talk about it. They're going to take the bus there and then going to go to the campus or the visits and then go back to the hotel.
But
and
for
then
Mexico City, every time that there is a visit, we meet here and then we live together, just to make sure that you would not get lost. Then the lunch and breaks. The breaks are served here.
Yes.
You can enjoy the coffee and the drinks. And the lunch?
We are going to eat in the cafeteria. It's in the next building in the second floor. We are going to go to, we have to go together because we are going to check with a card. Okay. And you don't have to pay anything. It's all checked. And they have to have the contract. Okay?
And then Tuesday morning, as I mentioned, Martha is going to be a little bit late. So we start at 10. You don't need to wake up early. You can have a little bit more rest. Especially those who need more.
I was up at 3 a.m. today.
And then there will be...
9 hours.
I start at 7.
We can start at 7 and we finish at 5 or 4. That would be perfect.
And then there would be some evaluation forms that I ask you to fill, please, and give it back to me at the end of the day. That would help us a lot. So that's it for the introduction, quick. Now let's get to the Mexico City challenges and your own presentations.
The visitors? Did you accept the terms? Maybe because it's inside.
Good.
Maybe that is
So-
a problem.
Now it's your turn, as I mentioned in the emails. In this session, you will present your own understanding of the Mexico City challenges based on what you read outside, in the news and everything, to the group, and then everyone is going to present. So I have already put your works here. The order is chosen specifically for some reasons, based on how detailed the model is, basically. But we start broad and then we get to the details. And then at the end, we make a conclusion together about the key challenges that we have here. And the idea of the session is that we make our own understanding of the challenges. And when other people come and talk about the challenges, then we have some kind of shared understanding of what we thought were the challenges and the causes, and can challenge them probably better by asking more detailed questions. And now, let's start with Matthias' presentation, the framework. So can you just explain us what you understood about, you can also use the 2 slides for you.
Is there any way to make this a little smaller, because it's not entirely on there? There's an important element missing, because
Okay.
you reduce it a little bit.
I'm not sure if I can do that. No, that's all what I copied.
See the other picture, the other slide. I don't know.
No, that's...
I just copied the small order. If you need that, I can just bring
okay,
it
I
up.
can just explain.
Yeah,
I just
explain
leave
that.
it at that, and I explain how it was meant to look. Okay, well, for some reason I'm the first in every module. last time I was really surprised. This time I'm not that shocked anymore. But okay, I guess what I try to express here is some basic thoughts. One is the interconnectedness of the different causes and of the different challenges, how they are related, how one thing can be a cause and can be a challenge at the same time. What I wanted to stress with this graphic that basically displays my lack of being able to express graphic things, so I had to go with some templates here. What I wanted to express is that, in my opinion, one of the major challenges that probably too many times we don't look at from an urban planning perspective is the social challenges. So my perspective of Mexico has evolved a lot in the last 20 years. I just found out that I came to study here in '97, which gives you an idea of my age, more or less. And back then, I was fascinated by the place. I loved everything. It was a surreal experience in many senses. And then with the years, it became a little more critical, and I started looking a little deeper and understanding some things that I overlooked in my initial fascination. And the more I have, in the last years, I've come back to Mexico in a work context many times and worked with Mexican government authorities a lot, which basically, honestly, this experience brought me to the other extreme on this scale of absolute uncritical fascination. And right now I'm honestly, and you will notice this in my discussions probably, right now I'm pretty much on the other extreme side, where my general impression is that it's no wonder that the country, with the incredible potential that it has, is not advancing the way I would like to see it advance, because I see a dramatic disconnect between the elites in the country and the majority of the population. And that's why I wanted to put at the center of what I consider the challenges, the social challenges. Because I feel they have the social inequality, the lack of social cohesion that it creates, the low levels of education. If you look at OECD countries, Mexico is not playing a very positive role there. If you look at citizen security issues, which are obviously related to many urban planning issues as well, an issue that is related to basically everything that you do in infrastructure is the issue of accountability, corruption, rule of law, which probably many of you who have read about the challenges that the city faces. If you read about the metro, there was a corruption scandal about the line 12, I think, when they constructed it. It comes up many times. So that's the key message that I wanted to place at the center of my view of the challenges, the social challenges. That obviously doesn't mean that there are no infrastructure challenges. Transportation is the one big issue that some mentioned already. Housing is another big issue that I see. Water management, you asked why they built a city here in this place. Because it brings them a lot of problems with water. It's a big parts of the city are sinking. I still find it fascinating to see that in the city center, where you see the cathedral and some other very nice colonial churches who stand like this because everything is in motion. So those infrastructure challenges are pretty obvious, I think. And related to that, the environmental challenges are also pretty obvious. The earthquake situation, subsidence, that you have parts of the city that are sinking. You have lots of floodings in the city when it rains more than it does right now. And obviously the pollution, basically air pollution, is one of the things that has impressed me most when I got here first. When I looked at bought newspapers in the morning, and you opened the newspaper, you saw the difference between white inside and yellow brownish on the outside. And it is something that you really feel it has improved a lot in the last years, but it's obviously, it still is a huge issue. And just to mention that once more, issues like the earthquake, like floodings, also have this social component, because obviously they don't affect people the same way. There are social groups that can deal with it much more, that are not affected because they live in other parts of the city, and then there are others who are really affected by these challenges more than others. What you can't see here is what I tried to include in the presentation. So you see a little bomb flying in here, which says scale.
So you're good in art, with art.
What's that?
You're good with art.
That's the only part, but then it didn't come through. So that was my idea of trying to explain that while we all learned that density is great for urban planning and so on, the numbers can be a challenge, and what I see here is that scale, the problem of scale, the sheer number of population causes a lot of stress to many of the systems, the transportation system, the waste disposal system, and so on. So that's why I wanted to stress that as a special factor, which is scale.
Very good. And then you have another slide talking about the green plan.
Well, that was my minimal adoption actually to the. Okay. It is. Oh.
You got it the other way around.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. So that is minimally different from the other one. It's basically to express in one chart that when the question is which challenges can be faced, can be tackled with the green plan that we were asked to look at, my worry is that they can tackle some of the issues, basically transportation. They talk about transportation, they talk about water management, and there are some, in my personal view, not overly innovative, but there are some good suggestions to tackle these issues. There are ideas to tackle floodings and pollution and so on, but I didn't find any suggestions that really go to solve the social challenges. So they will remain, and that is one of the big flaws that I see in the. There are many others, but that's the central flaw that I see in the green plan.
Great, thank you. So the next one is, I think it's not you, I guess. So Miguel.
Oh, that's me. Also doesn't have like the system around, but
Sorry, I couldn't fit everything in the
the
slide.
question was maybe this sounds like that.
Yeah.
The question was first, how do you give in the center? I didn't know how to put like well, I'm not working well with this. How do you get good quality of life for people here in Mexico with a bigger problem that is the unplanned fast urbanization and the accelerated population growth? 21 million Matias was talking about. So in that system, how do you give better quality of life, taking into account that first, what I read like in different papers, that in 10 to 15 years, with the population growth, Mexico City is going to have problem with water, so there's going to be a water shortage. So you want to keep, that's why down here it says how to keep the economic growth machine going if there's no water. So if there's no more people coming or there's no more possibilities for you to have water, then that will become a big problem for the economic growth for the possibly water and energy shortage. I read that in some articles I was having there. Then this big population problem was having some environmental challenges, because with so much people, many people buying cars because the transportation system was not so good, so it's become Mexico City more populated, and it said in one study that 50% that in 5 years it would grow, the vehicle transportation system would grow 50% more. So if now we have 1 million cars, I don't know the number of cars.
5.5 million.
No, I don't know the numbers,
Okay.
but I read that it would be like 50% more in 5 years, more cars. So the real question for the transportation system was, how do I make people buy less cars? Because in the end, if more cars are being bought, the problem would be that environmental challenges with pollution would be very, very big. The other was this air contamination problem will immediately begin with health issues for the city. That I saw it was becoming also a problem for hospitals and institutions, because many people were going to the clinics for this kind of sicknesses. Then, as a result of that, those were the challenges for the environmental, but then to try to solve those problems, then I tried to implement something that was reorganize the land use and intelligent housing. I'm in housing, so everything in the end I make it about housing. But where do people live? Because the sprawl issue, that was one of the biggest problems for Mexico City, is where the poorest people or the more vulnerable people, you keep putting them in the outer Mexico City, they will be the only mobility issue, the only mobility decision that we can't control is where people work. So if the housing is really disconnected with the working place, there is no way, because the distances will be so long, there's no way that people would have money enough, because the transportation will be so, first, inequality issues will become, and second, then we'll have more cars, and the contamination issues will be also had problems. So I was trying to mix uses and densification to cash in on existing infrastructure, because there's a lot of infrastructure here in Mexico City, but it keeps on growing, expanding. So densification and mixed uses, it's the key for Mexico. And later for restructuring, to also make a little bit more possible for people to have a more quality of life that's here in the center, and more equality here in Mexico City. You have to restructure the transport system so that you could connect those two sides, to connect the working place with the place where they live. So connect houses with working places, like like here it says, and give comfort and efficiency. Comfort and efficiency in the system, because there's two main issues that you try to solve. First, how do you connect houses with the working place efficiently, but also how do you give comfort for the people try to buy less cars and get into transportation system, because in the end you are trying to compete with the car. That's what Mexico City should try to do, to give a transportation system comfortable and good enough so that people won't buy cars. In the end, it's more or less that system I found.
Good. Next one, I think, is Jens.
Okay. So I think from the readings that I did, I have to say I didn't read more than 10 or 15 pieces for Mexico. But I think everything was like, I tried to bring up the three main problems here. So, I mean, air pollution becomes like the number one, although it seems that the topography of the city really like contributes to that, which is something that they cannot really do much about. And then, of course, urban sprawl. So, okay, where is the thing? Okay, it's here. So, kind of like, I put them in two categories. So the one was air pollution here, and the other one is the groundwater and what happens with the water problem anyway. So, in terms of air pollution, you know, lack of transportation options, of course, is one of the big issues in the topography, but then urban sprawl really causes that, and I wanted to put it somewhere, because sprawl is not the challenge that much, I think. It's like the cause of the challenge. Yeah, so I put it under air pollution, I don't know why. And it seems that the main issue of sprawl, the cause of sprawl, apart from the fact that, you know, the city is growing uncontrolled, is that they have a lot of illegal development, because they have conservation areas to protect the unlimited growth of the city, but nobody is really paying attention to that. So that is the one category of the problems. And then the second one was, where is this again? Like what happened with water, which I think will become the biggest issue in the city, if it's not already. So, and this is caused, so this challenge is caused to then subsidence, which is what Matthias said, you know, limited groundwater supply, which I read that now groundwater is not enough, and they're pumping water in the city because it's not, you know, even a city that has so much water, the groundwater is not enough to do that. Then you have a big issue of overcrowded households. So I read something like more than 6 people per household on each housing unit, which is the average. Then all the wastewater, which is unutilized. So despite the fact that you have a lot of rain apparently here, not only you don't utilize the water, but because of the sewage system that's open and uncontrolled, you end up having a lot of floodings and stuff like that. And then what happens with all the solid and the hazardous waste disposal? I read some figures here that for the solid waste, like 70-something% is collected, but only 60% is disposed at the facilities. And then that 90% of the hazardous waste is not treated, so it ends up going wherever. So I think that this eventually will become one big issue. Okay, and I made some connections between some causes here and, you know, what happens. But, you know, the big question for me is, you know, how do you keep on growing a city that has all these, you know, nature-related disadvantages to be a mega city? Please, I don't understand.
Then the next one was about the green plan, right?
Oh, then I tried to see, you know, based on the green plan, which I didn't really understand when it was adopted.
2007 they initiated that, I think.
2007, okay. Basically, I saw which of the main measures that they proposed, what do they tackle, and I don't know, you know, I mean, there is some connections that I saw that, but it's like, if you take the same, I mean, my main argument about the plan is that if you take the same plan and move it to any other, city above 10 million, it would be applicable. So, and then, I read a lot of things, but it didn't get into any detail the document that we had at least, so I couldn't really tell what, I mean, supposedly they're dealing with everything, but not in an organized way, so I didn't think that they were treating the challenges that they said were very typical, air, water, energy, etc. Which, in my understanding, okay, it makes some sense, but I think the special characteristics of this city are much more, focused on some of them, so they're not equally balanced. And this should be undertaken. But I think the big issue here is what happens with city subsidies, which I didn't read anything about that on the Green Plan, for example. And that was very surprising for me. I mean, what do you do with a city that is sinking like 15 centimeters every year, at least in some areas, and the Green Plan does not address these challenges.
It's only, there's like one challenge, like environmental challenge.
Yes, and it gives, okay,
It's
yeah.
a one-sided plan. It's not like a Mexico plan.
Good, good. So next one I think is Lelio.
This is a more basic framework. I think whatever was good. Okay. At the left side, you can find the challenge. I divided in 6 different challenges: urban planning, water management, natural disasters 1. I think that you cannot read, but it talks about earthquakes, floods, landslides, and drought. The mobility challenge, for sure. The climate change also is an important challenge. But I think that all of you has already told about urban planning, water management, natural disasters, mobility, climate change. And I would like to add the urban governance challenge, because if we are talking about those problems, and for instance, Yanis still has the question how they are dealing with all those problems, and to answer Miguel's questions, how they are going to stop buying cars and use the transportation public system, especially if you consider the price of the cars here is really cheap. So I think that we need really urban governance in terms of a metropolitan agenda, in terms of encouraging mobility, data use also. I really believe that when we have technology, not talking about smart cities, I think that it's a buzzword, but when we have technology, we can use technology to address those problems in terms of monitoring, in terms of planning the transportation day of the city. So I think that in terms of urban planning, we have already discussed it here, for sure. The spatial and social inequality is the basic problem. We are talking about a Latin America developing country city, so the social challenge for sure is the main one. But I think that to address that, we have to talk about governance for sure. The water management is a real problem because the city is sinking, and I don't know, but many centuries ago, here was a lake, so it's going to sink, definitely. We don't know when. And in terms of natural disasters, I don't know how to deal with earthquakes, and I think that it's a real problem. We can see here that they have some strategies to deal with that. There's for my research, I'm talking about flood and landslides in Rio. So how we can address this problem, and we have an interesting solution there, using the operation center and some sirens at the slopes that we can make people move from, like the same strategy as Mexico City has here for the earthquake, that people go to a common place to avoid more disaster. And in terms of mobility, I think that answering a street point of view, definitely Mexico City is the best that we have in the developing countries. If we go to São Paulo, São Paulo is the same, because we have 20 million people, but we just have 4 metro lines. We doesn't have any BRT. I don't think that BRT is the solution, but we don't have money to invest on subway systems, so we have that excuse. So we're going to build BRT. Okay, no problem. Rio, we have 4 because of the Olympics, but I don't think that we are going to keep building BRTs, especially because of the geography and the topography of the city. We have many mountains. It's a mess. It's really difficult to plan the city. But here, I think that you have 10 metro lines, almost 10 BRT systems. So I think that that is a worse challenge, because you really have already an infrastructure, and they didn't address the problem. So I think that is that. I know that my framework, I'm not so creative. My framework is really full of information, but I think that for me the most important was to define the challenges and what are the causes and how to interrelate. I would like to make some arrows showing the relationship.
That's all very good. And then, yeah, the other one on the green plan, right?
Okay, it's all here. Okay, we still have the challenges at the left, and in terms of the green plan, I think that it's not so based on to address all of those challenges. I think that when we talk about climate change, it's the 5th one. Definitely, there's a lot of strategies talking about that. I think that the green plan has some critics to be done, but I would like to focus on an interesting point, that is they really try to interrelate different agendas. We can see they always talk about climate change, and to try to reduce the pollutants, you have to make interrelation among the pillars to improve also other challenges like the water management. For instance, if you increase the reforestation, you